I'm joined once again by Adam Milstead, who's going to be taking on Jordan Johnson at UFC 222 coming up here on March 3rd. Adam, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. Now, are you working today, or is this one of your days off?
I'm taking off, obviously, today. So it's a weekend. Most of the time I have off.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I mean, people have sort of seen your story about how you still work a full-time job and also train, but you know, what are your hours like? Because I know sometimes I saw you make a post the other day, you know, you're up well before the crack of dawn. What's sort of your schedule looking like these days?
Normally I get up around 5:30 and go to work at 6:30, work from about 7 to, it'll range anywhere from 7 to 4, 5, 6. Sometimes I work 16-hour shifts, but, you know, it just depends on whatever the day calls for.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, it's been a while since we've seen you in the cage. And of course, I know your last fight against Curtis Blaydes, you suffered an injury in that fight. You know, how has this year been just sort of, you know, trying to get back into things and you know, dealing with the injury? And the other thing I was going to ask is how much has it sort of helped that you've had layoffs before due to injury? Do you feel like that sort of helped a little bit this time around?
It has. I don't know if that's a good thing to be proud of or something like that, but yeah, I've dealt with injuries before. I know what it takes to come back. I know what it takes to at least just get in there with the confidence to fight again. So yeah, the injuries in the past, they sucked, but they're part of who I am now, I guess. You know, I'm just that type of guy who doesn't know how to quit, just wants to keep going.
Yeah, it keeps coming back. Absolutely. Now, as far as the injury time off, you know, how long were you out of the gym for as far as, you know, how long you had to sort of rest and everything?
Well, as far as after surgery, I was probably out of the gym for a good 3-4 months before I was able to get back in there. And, I mean, even at that particular point, we were still talking about this fight. Like you know, it was that early that Jordan, and it's a funny thing, as Jordan actually hit me up and he wanted to fight, and I was still kind of laid up. You know, I was at least back to work and I was rehabbing every day, but I wasn't able to train at the fullest capacity.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because Jordan did mention that he called you out, which, you know, I don't know how you would approach that if someone's calling you out. Like, how did he get a hold of you, or did he just contact the UFC and they contacted you?
I have no idea why, but he hit me up on Instagram, and started out, it was kind of like a friendly type of thing. You know, he messaged me and said, "Hey, you want to fight?" And I said, "Yeah, I like to fight." And, you know, I looked him up real quick, and I immediately knew that, you know, I wouldn't be too worried about fighting this guy. I was like, yeah, this looks like a good comeback fight for me. Let's go ahead and put on a show, but I'm only going to be ready at a certain time. I'm not going to be ready the time he wanted to go. He wanted to do somewhere around December or January. And I said, I'm not rushing it, not pushing it. And so the funny thing is it was pretty good up to that point. And then he started calling me out a little bit further. He says, all right, well, I was trying to be nice. Now I'm not. He says, you're a pussy. He said, go ahead. You know, your knee's fine. Just take the fight, sign the contract. And we had a few words that we exchanged, and I told him, I was like, I will knock you out. Don't you worry about that. But I'm not fighting until March. He said, you're not worth coming back too soon to fight and possibly re-injure myself, or at least not give the best competition I can give. So I got a little ticked off at him, and we started exchanging words, and I told Jordan, I was like, you know what, man, I was like, I'm sick and tired of hearing your mouth. I will sign this contract, but we're not fighting until March. And when you sign that contract, just realize that you just picked your own ass beating. So I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do everything I can and knock his ass out. Like I even told him, I was like, I can't even watch your fights without falling asleep. I mean, you put more people asleep in a crowd than you do in a cage. Stop talking like you're going to actually punch me. You know, all it is I'm going to be fighting a wrestler who wants to try to take me down again. It's going to be either a ladder match or a carpet match, unless I have, you know, a better say-wise. But I'm going to do everything I can to hit him in the face hard, really hard.
So why is this fight at a light heavyweight? Because Jordan told me that he initially, when he approached this matchup, they were going to do this at heavyweight. Do you know any reason why this is at 205, or is that your preference?
He never said anything about heavyweight. I mean,
go watch my interview. I'll send you the link after this. He actually said that. He's like it was supposed to be a heavyweight fight, and then because he just wanted to keep active, and then he said that it just ended up being a light heavyweight, but he didn't know why. So that's interesting. It's good to hear both sides of things.
Yeah, no, he's a light heavyweight fighter, and he has to fight me. So general perception is like, all right, this is a light heavyweight fight. My idea also is I wanted to go down to light heavyweight. I'm not I'm not too big right now on fighting bigger guys. It's just that at light heavyweight or at heavyweight before, like I was always getting injured. I don't know why, and I don't know if it's my body is, it's not built strong enough to deal with that type of force. Ever since I went to the heavyweight division, because I fought light heavyweight all through my career until my after my pro debut, then I decided to go heavyweight, and my body hadn't been doing the way it should have been. It's not because I'm getting older. It's just the blunt force trauma that I'm constantly taking with the guy who's close to 300 pounds and I'm fighting every single fight. So I took pride in fighting in heavyweight because I was a lighter guy and I tried to stay faster. And I liked having the idea of knowing that I was fighting a guy with no weight class. It was like the good old days of UFC where there was no weight class, nothing like that. But at this particular moment now, it's like now I got to start looking into my future. And that's why I wanted to go to light heavyweight. And with George Johnson hitting me up, I thought, hey, this is a good step into the right direction where I need to be. And so, like I said before, I had no idea that he wanted to make it a heavyweight fight. He never told me that. And if he had done that, I may have thought about it. But, generally speaking, I don't know how farther I'm going to go in this sport. I mean, if I come out with a great victory, I'm going to go as far as I can. But I want to be healthy as far, from here on out. I want to do everything I can to help my body be the best that I can be.
Coming from your last fight where you fought Curtis Blaydes, what do you sort of take away from that matchup? Is it just the fact that maybe you were undersized, or what do you sort of take away from that matchup against Curtis Blaydes?
I just got injured. It was the first or second slam, which was within 30 seconds of the fight, that I felt my knee tear. And I had been put in that situation before, but it was a little bit later into the fight, and I knew this was going to be rough, and but I wasn't willing to quit. I wasn't willing to stop the fight because, I've been in this situation before. I know I can push through it. It's just when you get a guy that size who's roughly pushing 300 pounds, just constantly trying to take you down. That's one of the hardest things to do in mixed martial arts is stop somebody from taking you down to the ground. It's really difficult. Add another 40 pounds extra on a guy compared to who you are. Add in the fact that I had an extreme bronchitis that week. The UFC was scrambling around. I was just packed full of antibiotics that fight at the same time. Once my knee tore, I realized that this is going to be a rough one. And, I was going to do everything I can to try to finish the fight and get out of there. But in the back of my mind, it was like, I can't do the things that I want to do right now. I can't get up off the cage. I can't stand up because my knee won't allow it. If I had that fight back again, like we've talked to my coaches, and if that fight was to happen again, I'm absolutely 100% positive I can beat Curtis Blaydes. I know it. And, even in that fight, I felt his weaknesses. I felt how tired he was getting. I wasn't even tired at all trying to get up off that cage. But when it comes down to it, it's just the way things work, man. It's a heavyweight fight. These guys are in there, and they're going to do everything they can to beat me up. If I get hurt and injured, it's not on them. It's on me. So, nothing against Curtis. He came in and he did what it was necessary to beat me. He didn't want to stand with me, obviously. And, if I was to get that fight again, I'd love to get back in there and fight him, maybe when I'm even more healthier. But until then, I'll stick to fighting the lighter guys.
And speaking of lighter, going down to 205 pounds, what have you sort of had to change in your diet, if anything, to get down to the 205 limit?
I had to stop drinking beer.
There you go. It's as simple as that.
and stop drinking and eating pizza. And it's been pretty rough. Only because I'm extremely active. Now, what was kind of strange at heavyweight for me, I always had an issue with maintaining the weight. So the heaviest I was ever at was about 245. And at that particular point, I was eating close to 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day. And it was, I was eating up to 6 meals a day, nothing but chicken breast, eggs. I was doing high calorie protein shakes. And it was so brutal on myself, because it's just it got to the point where I never enjoyed eating. I never enjoyed food. My girlfriend at the time, she was like, let's go out, let's eat something. I was like, I really don't want to go out. What am I going to do? Go out and eat some more? I just ate a whole rotisserie chicken. So it was, it sucked maintaining that way. But when I stopped eating, when I said, okay, I want to go to light heavyweight, I dropped 10 pounds just thinking about it, and of course, I had to take it a little bit further, stop drinking the heavy IPAs that I love to drink. I had to stop, just eating out with the guys at work, started eating a little more salads. So there's benefits to the fact I'm going to light heavyweight. Number one, I'm lighter, my joints feel better. Number two, I'm healthier because I'm not drinking beer, I'm not eating pizza. I'm eating salads. I haven't even gotten to the point where I'm counting calories yet. More or less, it's just lowering my intake, and I'm still staying as active, if not even more active. So my body's doing really well with it, dropping down. The diet in itself kind of sucks. At this particular point, about 2 weeks prior to the fight, I'm starting to feel it now, and we'll see what happens. Luckily I only have to be 205 for about a half an hour, and then I can go and enjoy my steak and stuff like that. So.
Excellent. That's great. I don't know if you're aware of this. Jordan is going to be a father at any moment. When I talked to him yesterday, he basically said his newborn son was going to be due. How much do you think that'll be a distraction for him heading into this fight? I know it's motivating, fatherhood for a lot of people, but, it's also something that's going to be on his mind outside of this fight.
Absolutely. And that was something that I kind of took in when we we're talking about the fight. Did a little bit more research on him. Obviously, you could tell he was having a kid, and the reason why he wanted to avoid this time was because his kid was going to be due around here. Which, congrats to Jordan. That's something to definitely be proud of. But in the back of my mind, also thinking that, that's going to be a little bit of distraction. He might not be on his game, or he might be even more motivated. He might be, even just more hungry to get the win. But any way you look at it, once we've made it to the UFC, it's not about, we've got to win. We've got to win fights, but it's about putting on a show. So if he comes out throwing, standing in the cage, standing right in the middle of that Modelo sign or whatever's in the middle of that cage, standing right there, trading fists, and put on a show, I'm happy with the fight. I don't want people booing. I don't want people in the crowd, being, they don't want to watch this fight because it's just a big grappling match. I don't want that. I want a guy who's willing to stand in there. Let's put on a show. And if Jordan's willing to do that, and if his baby offers that motivation to do that, fantastic. It's going to be a distraction for him, or it might be a motivational thing for him. Whenever it comes down to it, happy for him. But when we're inside that cage, it's all about fighting and putting on a show.
And you talked about it there, Jordan's wrestling. That's obviously what he's known for. He's, very good about controlling his opponents. Have you brought anyone in specifically for this training camp to kind of, work on, takedown defense and things like that?
Well, the funny thing is I got a lot of guys who know Jordan Johnson personally. In fact, even talked to his old wrestling coach, and his coach kind of collaborated with my coach. It's crazy. The wrestling community is such a tight-knit community. These guys, I brought in Jason Cardillo. Jason Cardillo used to be the head coach of Canamac High School, is one of the best high schools in the nation, as well as he was a starter, for D1 with Slippery Rock University, where they've wrestled Cleveland, state. They've wrestled high level programs and stuff like that, and won and done really well. But this guy's a genius, and we call him the Machine because actually he fought MMA for a while before he kind of took a leave of absence because he's like that warrior brother. He actually teaches at the school as well as coaches high school and stuff like that. So him coming to school with bruises and stuff was not his cup of tea. They didn't really like that, so he's got to kind of hang back MMA. He's undefeated, but regardless, he's a really good coach, really high level wrestler. But him and a couple other guys that I've been working with, Isaac Greeley, these guys have offered a lot of insight to who he is and how he was during his old wrestling days. He wrestled at Iowa, but he never started. So you could talk that. Now, if you wrestle at Iowa, you're a good wrestler. Generally speaking, you're a good wrestler. But he also fought heavyweight, and heavyweight wrestling is a lot of tying up, clinch stuff, 50-50 over-under type stuff, and trips and maybe throws and stuff like that. So I'm not so generally worried about that part of his fight game. The hardest part to deal with the wrestler is if I'm throwing a right hand, and I'm looking to try to connect hard and he goes underneath, that's hard to deal with somebody who wants to take a double leg takedown, a shot on you. So I've never seen him do that in his fights, never seen him do anything like that. But anyways, yeah, he's, the coaches I got coming in have inside information on him and stuff like that. And I have Chris Dempsey that I work with too. Chris Dempsey just fought in Bellator not too long ago. Is a great wrestler as well. And a couple of the old Canamac guys, some guys from Cornell University come down and help me out. So
that's great. You've been getting in any training with the champ at all, Stipe Miocic?
Because
he's in Vegas out now, obviously, for the Ultimate Fighter, but I imagine before, I don't know if you got to work with him at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we worked about 2 days a week leading up to about whenever he did fight Nanagu. So we sparred a good bit. Sparred, wrestled, grappled, all that good stuff. They would invite me up. I was actually there for his last sparring session, so we did the normal 5-minute rounds. And, so I know what it's like to go up against the best in the world.
Yeah. No, that's obviously excellent. How do you see this fight sort of playing out on March 3rd? So how do you sort of envision it going down?
I hope, and I hope that we can just stand in the middle and find out who hits harder. Simple as, and that's all I'm really worried about. Of course, I want to win, and I'm going to do everything I can to knock him out. I'm going to do everything, that's my specialty, stand and bang. That's why I got in UFC. I didn't get in UFC off of wrestling, grappling, and stuff like that. I'm just that type of guy who wants to put on a show, and I just see it playing out, us going in there, putting on a show, and people standing on their feet cheering and stuff like that, and me getting my hand raised.
Booked any more singing gigs? Obviously, we've talked about your country music singing and everything else. Has there been anything in the works there?
I've talked to a few guys around here, and we're actually thinking about kind of collaborating some of the musicians here in Pittsburgh. I've had a couple other executive producers hit me up. They want to start producing some of my songs. There's a group out in Ohio that wants to help me out, so I'm thinking about trying to get in and do a little bit of studio time and see if I can get some professional tracks put together. But until then, one of the hardest things is actually getting in front of people and singing, and it's a very vulnerable thing, especially for a UFC fighter where all we have to do is go out and punch somebody in the face. It's a lot different when you're up there and singing in front of people. So I think the next step is to collaborate with these guys, put some songs together, and we're going to go and start playing around the good old steel town of Pittsburgh.
That's awesome. Obviously, you're taken now. You're not a single guy. But the last time we talked, I know Tomi Lahren, the political commentator, had followed you on Twitter. Did she ever message you at all? Ever say anything to you?
No, she's up here. I'm down here. I've got no problem with that. I understand. I didn't necessarily put on too good of a show in Houston anyway. So if she did show up, she probably just kind of hung back or something like that. But no, nothing really.
Does she still follow you on Twitter? Do you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's a nice feather in your cap, regardless. Yeah. And kind of on that same note, what'd you get up to for Valentine's Day? Obviously, you have this fight coming up, but did you and the girlfriend get to do anything exciting?
We just kind of stayed home. She cooked me a nice salad, and she's actually doing everything she can to help me out. She's like one of my biggest supporters, so she understands what I go through on a daily basis, and leading up to these last few weeks, it's really starting to weigh on me physically and mentally. So she's always there to help me out. I got her the cliche, dozen roses. She's a big spaghetti fan. So I picked her up her favorite spaghetti sauces, a couple of gift cards to Olive Garden, stuff like. She's an Italian girl, and we just kind of hung out and enjoy life. She picked me up Black Rifle coffee, which is amazing. I don't know if you've ever tried that.
I haven't. Now, where is this, like, just based in Pittsburgh, or is this in the States in general? Where it's called Black Rifle, you said?
Yeah, this is in the States. If you haven't tried Black Rifle coffee, is like you have to watch your videos. I think that's the reason why.
I'll check it out. I'll definitely check it out because I have coffee here and there, but I definitely am always looking for different ones. I've tried the caveman coffee, which I really like.
Caveman coffee. I've never heard of that.
That's the one that Tate Fletcher does. Keith Journey and Tate Fletcher.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for new ones, so that I'll have to check that out. I'm sure if they have it on Amazon, they probably ship to Canada. So we'll see.
Very. It's a conservative type of company, so they're taking pictures with their ARs, 15s, and there's chicks in bikinis and stuff like that. So yeah, naturally I was drawn to the coffee, and she ended up hooking me up. So.
Fair enough. Well, everyone's got to definitely watch this fight. It's coming up here March 3rd. It's UFC 222. Adam, I want to thank you again for joining me here on the program. Just to remind people where they can find you on social media, and if you got any sponsors or shout-outs, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thanks, guys, for watching. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and Facebook via Adam Milstead, at Adam Milstead. I want to give a big shout-out to Legacy Medical Centers. They're sponsoring me, helping me out with cryotherapy and physical therapy. Also, I'd like to give a big shout-out to Lake Effect Decoy Company. These guys have hooked me up with some awesome gear. Good duck company. CBD Sky, it's a CBD oil company, and there's a few others. I'll have to get to them later. But thank you, sir, for having me on. Like always, you rock.
Yeah. It's good to talk to you again, man.